This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello, good afternoon, and welcome aboard on the Sunset Safari. We are coming to you live from the Djuma Traverse in the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa. It's a lovely warm winter's day as we look at these baboons just enjoying some jackalberry fruits on this lovely afternoon. Now, my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera today I've got Senzo. How's it, Senzo? And hello, and how's it to all of you once again? Now, please don't forget to send us your questions and your comments on the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Let us know what you'd like to know, and, well, we'll do our best to answer all your questions. But right now, I haven't seen a troop of baboons for a very long time. And, well, these guys are very much at peace with themselves and the fruit that they're eating. They did run off a little bit when we first arrived, but I think now that we've just stopped a little bit of a way off, using our zoom on the camera there, they have now decided that that food is just too good to pass up. And they really are getting stuck in there. There's a whole lot of them up in the tree itself. And we're actually here, still in the central parts of the Djuma Traverse. And this is a dry chela pan, but it seems like still attracting a multitude of animals as they now exhibit their real climbing skills. The baboons, probably one of the more terrestrial of the primates, are very adept on the ground and in the trees. And they probably walk around on the ground more so than all the others. Oh, that one's... is he going to fall? Jeesh. Classic. And just wiping his nose on the bark there as well. I can sit and watch monkeys and baboons for hours. They really do jump around. Now, you can see that that's a male just by the bum area, not much pink or anything going on there, and the ladies do have a lot more pink in the bum area as a real advertisement to the males. But there is a whole lot of them hidden up there, really enjoying that jackalberry fruit. Now, Romit, the biggest baboon troop that I have seen was in Botswana, and it was over 200 of them. I think I stopped counting at about 200, and that was in the Cylinder, sort of real northern parts of the Okavango Delta. I was looking after a little camp there in the rainy season, and it was quite incredible, really, because I sat and watched them coming past me, and that's why I was counting them. And there was just so many of them. They just kept coming. There's a kudu also walking below. And it was quite incredible as well, because at the camp that I was looking after, we had an electric fence, but we would only turn it on at night. Now, obviously, the baboons didn't know that. And I literally witnessed one day, one of the female baboons literally took her baby and put it on the electric wire. And when nothing happened to the baby, they all piled into camp. So it was obviously a test. Put the little baby on the electric wire. If it gets zapped, well, we can carry on our way, and if it doesn't, well, then we can move into camp. So a nice little sacrificial lamb there, or sacrificial baby baboon, but so highly intelligent and very human-like in many aspects. Look at how they sit and eat. They are very dexterous with their hands, and as I say, climb very well. So, like I say, this is fascinating, and I think I'm going to sit here for quite a while, or until these guys move off, because they're always up to something. Now, I've got a couple of guys out there that are also up to something, one on bushwalk, and Tristan's out on vehicle.
I am indeed, Ralph. We are out on a vehicle this afternoon. It's my first time back in Rusty after many, many months, so it's a joyous occasion. As Ralph mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera I've got Fergus this afternoon. There we go. And Well, we are going to try and see what we can find out on the western side of the reserve for a bit. We're going to scratch around Treehouse Dam in the west, see if there's any sign of Hukumuri or Shidulu, and maybe even then head up a little bit further north and see if we can't pick up from Tundi where she was this morning. So that's the kind of plan for the early afternoon. Once it gets to late evening, then we're going to head off to our far eastern boundary, because the Nkuhuma Pride we're seeing close to Torchwood Camp, and they theoretically should be kind of slowly mobile westwards. And so maybe this evening as night falls, we might get them crossing over into Djuma. That's the idea anyway. So that's going to be the plan. In the meantime, we've just stopped with a bachelor group of impalas, which is fairly typical for this time of the year. Lots of these bachelor herds around, given that we've just coming to the end of the rut. There's that last or secondary rut that is happening now. At the moment, you hear them every now and then, but it really is petering out very quickly at the moment. In fact, in the last few days, I've hardly heard them making that gargling, snorting sound that they do. And it signals that that's pretty much the end of it. And so what we'll find is that this is just going to be males that have chased each other around and have formed these bachelor groups. And then we're going to have a situation where these bachelor groups are going to start to dissolve a little bit and start to merge with the female groups. And you're going to have a situation where we'll have all of these guys kind of coming back together and forming the mixed herds that we get generally in the summer parts of the year. So we're kind of going to be marching our way that way. Most of the females should be pregnant, and so that will also help calm the testosterone levels of our males. There's no longer that drive by picking up the scent of females in heat that will make them kind of more aggressive towards one another. And so for now, everything's okay. There's actually two that are busy sizing each other up in the background on the right there. There we go. So those two are just having a little stare down, which is pretty typical for impalas. It's nothing major, but they'll often stand like this, facing each other, and then they'll bow their heads and curl their lips, and then there'll be a little bit of movement back and forth, and eventually then they'll actually clash horns. But it seems as though those two are not too interested in fighting. Now, it's going to be an interesting evening, because as we start to go towards the dark, the wind is really howling, and so we're going to have a situation where a lot of our animals are going to be quite on edge this evening. We're going to have a situation where, as the wind blows, so these guys don't really know which way predators are coming from. The wind swirls a little bit and scent drifts all over the place. And so while it's nice and bright now, everybody's going to be quite relaxed. But as soon as it starts to get dingy, if this wind stays up, it's going to be a difficult evening for these guys, that's for sure. Still a beautiful animal though, and in really good condition, all of these impalas. You can see all their bellies look very healthy, and it's probably due to the fact that we had a really nice late rain this year. We had a situation where we got rain in April and even in March, April sort of period, and a little bit in May. And that would have allowed for these guys to have a really good late feed and sort of stock up their condition. And even though we've now been through the rut, which is a period when male and impalas lose most of their condition due to the fact that they're so active, we can see that these guys are actually looking all right because of that. Beautiful clear day though. It's been a nice warm sort of day, other than the wind itself. Now, I don't seem to have any comms whatsoever. I can link Ralph. Excellent. Well, while we try and fix our comms, let's send you back across to Ralph and see where he is at the moment.
Well, still sitting here with the baboons and the kudu that are just moving around on the bottom. And you often find antelope moving near to baboons, especially impala, kudu, and they do enjoy the little bit of comfort, I think, from the very, very alert baboons. And they also do then offer an extra sort of safety mechanism for predators. It's quite difficult to sneak up on a baboon, and even more so with monkeys. I often try and test that theory when we're walking, try and sneak up on them, see how close you can get to them, and it's normally without fail that you don't get within 100 meters, and one of them spots you or hears you or smells you, and then you can hear the alarm calls ringing out. And well, at the moment these baboons really are enjoying these jackalberries. Now, the social sort of structure or organization of baboons is an oligarchy, which is not a patriarchy or a monarch. matriarchy. So a matriarchy would be led by a dominant female. Patriarchy would be led by a dominant male. However, an oligarchy is a group of elite males, like a gang that lead this troop of baboons. And so it's not just one of them. It is definitely led by a group. And obviously, the bigger the troop, the bigger the group or gang of dominant males that will lead it. And there can be a little bit of a sort of hierarchy amongst them as well. You see, this individual, you can see they're skinning these jackalberries. They're not eating the skins. They're sort of getting rid of the skin and then eating the inside, and they'll probably be spitting the pip out as well. That very curl tail of theirs, it always sits with a bit of a curl just near to their bottom, because that's where they sort of pull it up when they're walking. So it doesn't really drag on the ground. Now, sitting bull, strange that you ask. This afternoon there was a message going around that at our second sort of staff camp, where the overflow, where the guys stay, the door was left open, which is always a problem. And surprise, surprise, I'm pretty sure that it was this troop of baboons that got inside. And yes, they are a terrible nuisance. Houses, because they literally destroy the place. They will make a terrible mess, and they are a problem if that happens. But if you keep things closed up, windows closed, dustbins stashed away, as long as they can't access it or get inside, then it's not a problem. But I tell you what, you have to even lock the doors, because they know how to open the door. So if it's not locked, they will still open the door and go inside. They are very clever little beasties, and it can be a terrible nuisance. And sometimes it does land up, if they become a real problem around lodges and that, there's normally one that needs to get shot. And it's actually the big bang that definitely scares them off, and it's where there's big troops around, and then they'll sort of leave you alone for a couple of months, and then they start getting brave again, they start coming back, and then one of the males needs to be shot again. So that's also a little message to especially tourists that come through. It's not only tourists that make the problem, it's generally around dustbins and so on, and rubbish pits and all of that starts attracting them. But like with jackals, baboons also do get attracted by humans that think it's a good idea to feed them and then take lovely photos, but you're not doing them any help. You're not helping them. In fact, you're probably signing their death warrant, because as soon as they start associating humans with food, they lose their fear of us, and that's when they become dangerous. If you look at a baboon's teeth, they're probably the same size as a lion's canines. So very, very dangerous potential, and we do not want them to not be scared of us. We always want to maintain that. And I've also found that with ladies, the males definitely take more chances with the ladies. They can obviously identify that. Now, speaking of males, I hear that Sydney has got himself out and about, out on foot, and I'm sure he wants to say hello.
A very, very good afternoon and welcome to the beginning of the bushwalk. I am Sydney. I am traveling with my game scout, Herbert. I am also with David. He is my camera operator. We are going to be with you this afternoon, and hopefully you are going to enjoy our lovely experience. My plan for this afternoon is not that very difficult. I will be looking for the small things that we cannot see when we are driving the vehicles. I will be digging here in between the grasses and underneath these rocks to try and check if we can find some of these interesting insects, as well as the arachnids, reptiles as well, including some of the tracks. I have got one of the very much interesting tree I want to show you just now. Here I have got a tree which is called a weeping whittle. The name weeping is like cry. These trees, sometimes you will see they do drop quite a lot of water because of the wood borers. But the story for me this afternoon has got something to do with a traditional belief. This is one of the trees we as vendors believe is connected with our ancestors. We normally come here during the olden days. This is what we were doing. We used to come and take these leaves, and we'll collect a lot of them and wear them when we go for the spiritual dances. And only this tree is the one which was catering for those kind of exercises. The leaves, they are very much smooth, but when they're dry, they don't last longer. So it's something that we were using just once off. Late afternoon, we throw them away. Tomorrow when they're dry, all these leaflets, they are going to come out. They are going to become loose. But when it's fresh, you can have it. Yes, some of the people, they use these leaves as a toilet paper in the bush. But this is what I've been taught. While I was growing, we used to go to the rivers, and we used to go and plow some of the mealies in those kind of areas. So these are the trees we were relying on. But we were taught that this tree, if you look at the leaf structure, it looks like an acacia tree or the Vachelia trees. So if you can check the Vachelia trees, they do have these kind of leaves which are twice divided. They are like bipinnately divided. So these kind of leaves, you must first make sure that underneath this there is no hooks, because some of the acacia trees, they do have some of the hooks which can be very dangerous if you apply these as a toilet paper in the bush. So now I am going to carry on and see if I can find some of the interesting stuff. Now let's go to Tristan and see if he's got something on his side.
I do indeed, Sydney. I've got our vulture pair that we see here most days. In fact, every day there's at least one of them around, but I haven't seen the two together for quite some time. So it's quite nice to see both male and female that are on the nest today. And they are sitting fairly off the nest, and the reason is probably because the sun is quite warm, and so no need to actually be incubating those eggs at the moment. At first I thought maybe I spotted a little chick, but it's actually the one adult that's standing over the nest. You can see she's got a little white feather that's fluttering in the breeze, and so when the vulture chicks are born, they're these little fluffy white things that move around, and they're pretty kind of immobile. They don't really move too much, but they have this white fluff to them, and in the wind often you just pick up that little feather blowing in the breeze. And so I thought maybe I had spotted one. We're obviously waiting now for the eggs to hatch. I'm pretty sure there are eggs inside that nest. If we had to climb that tree, I'm pretty sure we would find eggs. In fact, it might be quite a nice thing at some point just to see what the drone sees inside of that nest if they're not around. But it's very seldom you'll find these guys won't be on the nest itself. But essentially they will have their eggs now, and they normally do lay eggs in this time of the year. June, July is the period that white-backed vulture will lay, and then they will incubate and raise these chicks all the way through until next year, which is a very, very long period. It's one of the longest periods of any of our birds out here that it's dependent on its parents. Obviously most birds the eggs will be laid and the birds go from the nest pretty quickly. It's within sort of 20, 30, 40 days for most birds, whereas these guys in total, from laying of the eggs until that chick leaves the nest and it flies off on its own, is over 220 days. So it's a very long period that these poor adults have got to look after them, and that's why we see a situation where the vultures generally only breed once every year. So you find that they pick a certain time, which is now, and then they breed, and then they'll have their chicks and raise them. If they lose their chicks, it's very seldom that they breed again. They normally just wait until the next year to have chicks. And it's a bit of a concern, because obviously white-backed vultures like this, there's quite a few nests that we see, and it's quite common to see their nests on a bare tree like this. But a lot of the other vulture species don't actually nest like these kind of nesting points. They like to nest in big foliated trees along riverbed areas, and unfortunately for them, they've got a situation where they've lost a lot of habitat due to deforestation in many areas. Also, a lot of the riverbed areas have had severe flooding done to them in the last few years, and particularly the Sabi River. A number of nest sites for hooded vultures were lost when the river came down in flood, and big jackberry trees and Cape ashes and those kind of things were all washed away, and it meant that we had a situation where, you know, these guys lost a lot of their habitats and their homes, basically. And so hooded vulture nests are actually really difficult to find. Now, that is not a vulture, obviously. That is a different kind of bird. It's a red-crested koran that is walking through the grass. It's always around this area. In fact, I see it here most times. It's actually quite relaxed. You can even find it if you walk on foot. It doesn't actually fly away from you. And it would be really nice if it starts to call. It's not really the right time of day for them to do their display. You'll normally find them calling and displaying in the early morning or late afternoon. And actually a few days ago we had one doing its display. It was really, really cool. It's not something you see very often at all. And for those of you who don't know what the display is, essentially what they do is they make this bill clapping sound with this call, and then they shoot up into the air, and they fly not too high, probably about 30 meters into the air, and then from there they just fold their wings in and plummet to the ground, and they have this sort of free fall that they do, and as they then get very close to the ground, they pop their wings out almost like a parachute and then land very softly. And it's all a display that the male does to the female in order to try and kind of win some brownie points and try and impress her as much as possible. But it's really very, very cool. They're not the most agile flyers, and so watching this ball of feathers fall through the air is always quite entertaining. Now, the red-crested koran name comes from the fact that if you see on the back there, you can see this little grey sort of patch on the back of the head. That grey patch, when the male is trying to court the female, you'll actually lift that grey patch up, and you'll find that there will be this red crown that will come out, and it will make this beautiful big display that then again, not only does he fly up and does his little aerial display, then he has a physical display to her as well to try and impress her. So lots of tricks up this little bird's tree. Even though it's a bird that is quite drab and not that colourful, it actually has quite a amusing way that it finds females. Very, very cool little bird, though. Right, well, we're going to carry on. We'll leave our vulture pair in peace. We're going to head off to Treehouse Dam. While we do that, let's send you back across to Ralph, who I'm sure is thrilled to have the baboons back on the property.
Yep, I sure am. It's always wonderful. I love it. I love hanging near baboons, and yeah, I mean, I've seen them in many different situations, from Botswana to in the Okavango Delta, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and I also saw those olive baboons in Kenya. They're a lot more shy than these baboons. I think they're a little bit smaller. There's one big male, I think, up in the leaves there. He hasn't shown himself just yet, but if we get to see him, you'll actually see that they are huge. And they do have like a mane as well, so you can really easily see the big males. These ones that we're looking at the moment are quite small, and not really the ones that would be big males. There might be a couple of young males, little females as well. The few that I've seen here are young males. I haven't even seen a female, except for the ones that moved off as we got here. I think they're a little bit more shy. Now, CNAC, they are very, very good mothers. The fathers don't really have much to do with the upbringing of the little youngsters at all, and you very often find them when they're first born. They latch in underneath them on the mother's belly, and they latch onto her teat, and they sort of drink while she's on the move. Everything, you almost can't even notice that the little baby's there, because it's latched in and holds on really tight. And as it grows a little bit, then you can often find them riding on the back of the mother, like jockey style. It's almost like it's riding a horse. They really sit up and go for it. And then obviously as they get a bit older and bigger, then the mother will sort of push them off, and then they need to start looking after themselves a bit more. But the troop really looks after each other. everybody does get sort of protected by the greater part of the group, and they do band together if there's any danger. And I looked after a little lodge in the northwest, it was called Mashavela, and there's a very sacred water waterfall, and the river coming down, and in like quite a big canyon. And one day I took my dogs for a walk up the canyon, and these baboons spotted us, and I tell you what, they all banded together along on the cliffs, and they were pushing rocks down at us, and it was crazy. My dogs were freaking out, and we were really going to get sort of taken out by this very big troop of baboons. It was probably about 50 of them, and so they can be quite intimidating. And I also had the same in Sosos Flay in the Sesrim Canyon. There's one of the water points there, one of the only spots in the area, and you go down in this canyon, and when the baboons come up the top, they want to come down to get a drink. And they notice that it's full of humans down in the canyon. They start pushing rocks off the cliff, and so they can be quite aggressive and quite intelligent at the same time. So those two can be quite dangerous. Now, obviously, you just need to, it's quite easy to show dominance with the baboon and chase it off, but you need to be quite confident in your sort of dominance. If you sort of try and chase them off and you take a back step, they can see that you're a little bit cautious, and it doesn't really work, and then they can actually get quite aggressive towards you. Yeah, I was throwing a stone at them and just pushing them off is quite easy. Now, Paula, you wouldn't believe it, their main predator is the leopard, and in a lot of areas, especially like in the the Cedarburg down in the Cape there, where they have the Cape leopard, it's pretty much all it eats is baboons. And in a lot of mountainous areas where leopards occur, it's leopards and baboons are eternal enemies. It's pretty much like hyenas and lions. And there's been quite a few documentaries. I actually saw one where they actually made this like leopard decoy. So it was an artificial leopard, and they put it out where these baboon troops were moving through, and one troop came past, and they all banded together and were barking at it, bow, 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 and making all their noises, and then they started coming towards it, and then one of them grabbed it, and they realized that it was, obviously not a healthy leopard. They probably thought it was quite sick or injured, and they all attacked it and really ripped it to pieces. But it was obviously just material and foam and stuff, but they ripped that leopard into pieces, and it was very evident how they despise leopards. And yeah, so leopards are very good hunters of baboons, and when they're walking around on the ground, obviously quite easily preyed on because they're not very fast. So anyway, I'm just going to sit here until these guys move off completely, because it seems like there's still a big male up the tree, and that's who I want to see. So while I'm doing that, let's head you off to Sydney and the Bushwalk team.
I am still on my search here of the small, interesting wonders of the wild. It is very much difficult this afternoon to find these insects because the sun at this stage is very much hot and is very much windy, but at least this wind is cooling down the temperature. So I have got one of the very much popular tree. This is called a silver cluster leaf. This tree, every time I see it, it reminds me of the time while I was still very young, while we were still doing some gardens. And doing gardening here, we were not using the fence in order to prevent the birds and chickens to come and eat our vegetables. This is what we're doing. We were traveling for about 2.5 kilometers, going very far in the bushes where we were picking up some of the branches. We were targeting the thorn trees, and we bring them home where we are going to do a fence. And when we are done with the fence, then we dig and plow the vegetables there. But when we were taking these branches, there used to be a very big river there. But because it was a downhill, we go very quickly running downhill. When we get there, before we come back, we go and swim a little bit. And some of us, when we come out from those rivers, we come out with bilharzia, which is one of the diseases caused by those kind of rivers. So this tree, the silver cluster leaf, when experiencing problems such as bilharzia, you can come and take the outer layers of the roots, infuse them, and drink that water. How do you see that you've got bilharzia? Not even long after doing those kind of swimming activities by the rivers, you will see the last drop to come out from the urine, it will be a little bit of blood. And that gives us a sign. It means now the river caused us troubles. And it's difficult to report home that we have got bilharzia until at home they see that we have got a problem, because they were always saying to us, don't swim there, there are crocodiles and there's bilharzia. So this tree is the one elders were taking us and go and look for and dig and take the outer layers of the roots, cook them, and we drink in order to solve those kind of diseases traditionally. So now I am going to be looking for more other interesting things here. So let's see the squirrel, beautiful squirrel with Tristan on the other side.
Well, I'm quite surprised that our squirrel actually sat still long enough for us to show you. But I suppose on a windy, sunny afternoon, it seems like the perfect place for the squirrel just to hang out and take it easy. And you can actually see how windy it really is. Look at the tail, how it's being blown about as the squirrel sits on the actual edge of the tree. It's pretty incredible. Normally squirrels, or any mammals, their tails don't really get moved by the wind, but it gives you an idea that it's actually quite blustery out here today. And it's quite common to see squirrels doing these kind of things. We often have them sitting on these trees and on these stumps and sunning themselves, particularly in the winter months. Obviously in summer, sitting on a tree like this at this time of the day would be tantamount to being roasted on a fire, so they don't really do it much in summer. But in winter, we'll have a situation where they do it quite regularly, and it should be more than one. It's a perfect kind of tree for them to have a nesting site. So in these trees that have any broken branches or stumps or anything like that where a squirrel can get into, you'll often find that there are a number of them, and they'll nest in here, and there'll be a pair that have their little ones. So especially on that left-hand branch, you can see there's quite a bit of damage that's been done to it, and there's a few little hidey holes in there. So the perfect place for a squirrel to have a home. Also a great area for them to be able to escape predation. So sitting on an open log like this obviously will attract attention from various things like African harrier hawks, or even other birds of prey like martial eagles might not go after a squirrel. And so if they've got a close exit to that they can just get into and hide, it's often a good thing. So find them quite regularly on trees like this. Nice thing about this particular one is also got a bit of foliage, so if it does get quite hot, they've got a nice shady spot to sit as well. Very cool. This is going to be one of the most relaxed squirrels ever. Normally we have a situation where they just run away from us, but this guy is taking it very easy. Cute little things. Good, let's carry on. I was hoping that I was going to find some tracks for Hukumuri or Shadulu coming into our side around the Shabamo area, but it doesn't seem like there are any signs so far, so we'll keep going. We'll go and check Treehouse Dam quickly if there's anything happening there. While we do that, let's send you back across to Ralph, who's now got, well, a miniature version of the baboons he's been seeing earlier.
Well, it's always the same. We did have a little baby on the back of a mother, but it's gone behind the grass there, and I think it jumped off her back as well. But we are waiting. There's quite a large group of them here, and they're all moving through. There's one or two that have gone jumping through the trees there, the silver cluster leaf. A little youngster there enjoying jumping around, and it looks like it might also be eating the leaves of the bush willows. Now, Sid baboons, it depends on the terrain and the area. They can very often have a particular area that they move around and stay in permanently, but it seems like here they're quite nomadic, and they actually move a little bit more as the sort of food suggests that they should. So they definitely move around here, because we haven't had baboons on Djuma since I've been here. I've never seen a baboon here. So this is the first group that has come through. But they do come here or through here quite regularly. And I'm sure when the resources permit, look there, it looks like it's eating the seed pods. Oh, there's it riding jockey style now, the little baby on the back of mommy. See there, as it goes through the bushes. I think these guys are making their way towards Twin Dams. They maybe all go for a drink. So I'm going to be just flanking them. They're walking down a very big game path. Look at that one. It's got its taxi. Classic. They also pull on the mommy's hair almost to say, come on, off you go. And she's just foraging at the moment. And there's another one now sitting right up at the top of the tree here. But as I say, monkeys and baboons are seriously entertaining. Now, what baboons can eat, if you watch what baboons can eat and you think that you can eat it, beware, because they can stomach things that us as humans would get sick on. But if monkeys are eating things in the bush, we can pretty much eat almost everything that a monkey eats. So if you see a monkey eating mushrooms or insects or anything, you can pretty much bet that it's safe for us to eat. But don't do the same with baboons. Now that is very indicative of a female. See, much more red bottom or buttocks, and that's and they use that pinkness to attract males, and the redder it is, the more sort of receptive they are for mating, and I have spoken about it before, but we studied in ethology how that sort of relates to our primeval or natural instincts as humans. Why do ladies wear red lipstick? And I know that some people might think I'm being crazy, but it has a lot to do with attraction. Now, red equals attraction, and red buttocks on a baboon's bum would equal a very similar kind of attraction or red color that we use as humans. So why don't we use yellow or blue? No, we use red, because it's a natural instinctive attraction that we have between each other. And that was a whole subject that we really debated in varsity, was around the baboon's red bum equaling humans with red lipstick. So I know you can insult me, no problem, I don't mind, but it's a fact, and it's it's pretty much the same as a baboon's red bum, as this one tries to balance in this bush willow. I think they're all after the seeds, and you'll often see they store quite a lot of food in their cheek pouches. Now, proud cat mama, they're not, as far as I know, they're not on the red data list at all. They are still quite common, but as with all animals, wild animals, obviously, their natural habitats are being limited and degraded, and so they are sort of coming more and more into human contact. And as I say, when that happens, they do quickly get shot, because they make such a mess. They are very destructive in our terms, you know. If they get into a house or into a garage, they will turn that place upside down, and they also normally defecate and urinate, and they wipe it all over the walls. It's terrible. I've seen it 1,000 times when a door's been left open and the baboons have gotten inside, and you walk in there, the stench of what they've left, you know, their feces does not smell nice. nice because they are sort of meat protein eaters as well. They're omnivorous, so they'll eat pretty much anything. And obviously this combretum has got quite a bit of protein in the seeds here, I would imagine. But they'll eat termites, they'll eat lizards, they'll eat even meat. It has been known that they kill little baby impalas, and they can eat that, and that's quite a gruesome kill because they don't really put it out of its misery. They sort of also start eating it while it's still alive. But they do eat meat. So very capable at doing that. And any animal that eats meat or has meat in its diet, their feces normally really smells bad. So I think I'm just going to continue flanking these baboons, hopefully as they make their way down towards Twin Dams. And, well, that's pretty much me now for the start of the drive. Well, let's head you on over to Sydney and see how the bushwalk is going.
I am trying to get a hold of one of the very most interesting insects, the ants. But I can see these ants are all hiding. I am right now at one of the nests. You can see the nest. It has been built somewhere here. A lot of sand has been taken underground and is just offloaded outside. So the ants, they have got a very interesting caste social structure. A social structure which is called a caste is whereby there is different departments. They are like bees. They are like they are like termites. You've got workers, soldiers, as well as the reproductive. So here, the ants. Yeah, here I've got one. I can see that. I didn't see where this ant came out, but I can see it's just moving around. Maybe it's going to lead me to where the others are. So look at the size of this insect. Can you believe this insect has got two types of stomach? The ant has got a stomach for him to eat and another stomach for him to keep the food so that when they get back to the nest, they can regurgitate and give it to the other ones. These insects, what I like the most about them is that they work cooperatively and they've got a lot of care on each other. These insects, they think like we do. If we can check, one ant is consisted of about 250,000 brain cells. And if you can check a colony of ants, which is consisted of 40,000, if you take 250,000 multiplied by 40,000, it's going to give you 10,000 million brain cells, which is then equivalent to our normal human brain. In other words, these insects collectively, they think like we do. Very small in size, but they can think very well. And if you find them, every time they walk, they will be walking on a convoy. You don't have to come on that convoy and draw a line like this. If you do that, you are going to disorientate them because they normally find food and leave a scent. So if you break the scent, you will see they will get confused a little bit until they navigate again. So these are one of those interesting insects which are here to help us because they do clean the vegetation. They eat a lot of the dead materials from the insects, and they even eat some of the nectar, which is very much sweet. Insects are very much interesting and I love them too much. So I'm just going to carry on now and see if we can find more other small interesting insects or arachnids. Sina, the most common ant I have seen here is the drop-tailed ants. They are very much small in size and they've got a very small tail. So ants, they are occurring a lot during the rainy season. Now, there's just a little bit of I'm finding here. Come rainy season, we are going to see a lot of interesting small insects and also other small arachnids. I know a lot of people, they have got a big confusion between the insects and the arachnids. They look the same, but they are different. A very good example of the arachnid is the spider. If you can check how many body parts does a spider have? It's just two. It's the cephalothorax and the abdomen. An insect has got 3 body parts. You find the head, and you will find the abdomen as well as the tail. And insects, they've got wings. Arachnids don't have wings. And arachnids, like spiders, they have got 8 legs. Then when you come to the insects, they've got 6 legs. So those kind of insects and arachnids is the ones that I'm going to be looking for a lot during the summer season. So here where I am, trekking is never easy. Let's go to Tristan and see how he's doing on trekking.
Well, our tracking has not been going very well. We hadn't found anything until about 2 seconds ago when we found this track for a male leopard. Now, I'm just trying to work out who it is exactly. I have a funny feeling that this is from Tingana from yesterday. And the reason why I say that is we had a leopard calling from this area yesterday morning, and then we managed to find Tingana moving around, going in a sort of northeasterly direction. And he must have come from this area. But if we have a look here, you can see it's this track right there. The only thing that makes me a little bit doubt what's going on is the fact that this track is very, very smooth on the edges. There doesn't seem to be too much sign of wind damage. Now, it's been quite windy this morning and this afternoon, and so I would have expected to have a little bit more kind of soil that had been blown onto the edges of this track. And so I'm quite interested just to see where these go. I have a feeling that they could be yesterday's. Obviously in winter tracks last that much longer because we don't have rain and those kind of things, but it really does look like there's not too much soil inside, and so these might be from during the course of this morning and that we just missed these tracks during the night. So I just want to follow them and have a little look. They obviously go down the road in that direction, and so maybe it is Hosana's tracks. Could it be? It's difficult to tell them apart these days. Hosana and Tingana have quite similar feet. It's not easy at all to be able to differentiate between the two. And Treehouse Dam is an area that, well, obviously we know that Tingana comes here every now and then. He hasn't been here much of late, but he does come here. And Hosana last year was one of his favorite haunts. So it'll be interesting to see, and we don't really know where Hosana went. We have this situation where he was at the dam, and then from there's no tracks, no sign. We have no idea where he's gone, so I wonder if maybe he's been hanging out down this side. Jennifer, yes, there were 3 cats on the Sunrise Drive. We had Tandi, Tingana, and Tlalamba. So Tandi and Tlalamba were together right in the beginning of the morning before we went live, and then Tandi went off hunting and left Tlalamba to just spend the morning by herself. But she wasn't by herself for very long because soon Tingana arrived, and then he investigated that for a little bit, and then he went off and followed Tandi's scent towards the lodge area. So we had all 3 of them, but then Tingana went north into Buffelshoek during the course of the morning, and Tandi, we lost her around the camp. So that's really kind of the updates from this morning. There was no other signs of any other leopards this morning. We obviously also didn't really look too much after we found those 3. We spent most of our morning trying to kind of follow them and work out what was going on. Good, well, I'm going to just see where these tracks go, see what happens with these, and whether I can work out how fresh they are. In the meantime, let's send you across to Ralph, who I think is still sitting with his baboons.
Well, yes, baboons, and as I said, moving around with the impala, and they really do move together quite nicely. And every now and then we've got a bit of vocalization. Listen up. Very subordinate squeal, that. And a couple of the other baboons are coming through. See, they're chasing each other around. Somebody obviously said something they shouldn't have. Oh, somebody getting told off there properly. You see why I like hanging around baboons? There's always something on the go. Well, that one really getting nailed. Oh. That one really getting told off properly. There's the impala having a look. What are you guys up to? Yes, Louise, that's the sort of dichotomy of it. They love moving together, but if the resources run really low, baboons can grab a little lamb and actually eat it. So that's not normal, though. They generally just move together like this. But if a baboon's very hungry, and like I always say, you don't know what you're going to eat until you are hungry. So when the baboons do get very hungry, and there's a little baby impala there, well, they have a go at it and they eat it. It's not like an impala can eat a baboon, but a baboon can definitely eat an impala, so it's only one way in that. These guys are still moving through here and definitely making the road towards the twin dams. Now, something that quite interesting, I think it was on a movie called Beautiful People by Peter Dirk Ace. One of those movies that was made in the 80s, so not everything very true there. Some of them are a little bit skeptical, but like the elephants that get drunk on the marula fruits. But there was a very interesting thing that was done by some of the bushmen, where they catch a baboon and use it to find water, because a baboon will never be far from water, so they need to drink, quite regularly. So if you were out in the bush, follow baboon tracks, or like the bushmen would do, they would take a piece of almost like pup or maize meal, and they put a lot of salt on it, and then they catch a baboon by putting this piece of pup in a crevice in a rock, but where it's sort of very thin, and then it opens out into a little cavity, and they make sure that a baboon is watching them, and a baboon's curiosity will always get the better of him. And what he does is he goes over there and he sticks his hand in this crevice, and then he grabs the piece of food, but he can't work out that he just needs to open his hand and he can pull his hand out, but because he's got a fist, his hand is stuck. So that's the way that the bushman catches him, and so he grabs him and just puts a little noose around his neck and ties him to a tree. And then for the better part of the day, he just keeps feeding him this sort of maize meal type or bready type food with lots of salt on it. Feeds him that for a couple of hours, and then lets him go, and just follows him, and he'll take him straight to where the local water is. So that's just one way of finding water out in the bush. Catch a baboon, feed him salt, and he'll take you straight to water. That's it. Baboons very clever, and they'll always also know where the water sources are, whether it's a little spring or a little pan or whatever it might be. So the bushmen also use their instincts to their advantage. As that one is just falling out of that branch. And they're all over the place. Now, proud cat mama, baboons you can see that they don't really enjoy the water too much, because I've seen them in the Okavango Delta when they're crossing the little channels, and they stick their arms up in the air as they walk through the water, and they're really keeping their hands out of the water when it's sort of waist deep. But yes, they can swim. They can cross rivers, they can cross pans, they can cross channels, so yep, they can. And I've seen them also jumping out of trees. Oh, that one's got a little baby underneath. Jumping out of trees and actually jumping into the water, having fun and playing in the water as well. So they can swim, and I know that there's a lot of other primates that can do the same. So hopefully we can follow these baboons all the way up to Twin Dams, and maybe we'll even get to see them swim as well.
Since I have arrived here in Djuma Game Reserve, I have never seen any of the baboon. And those are some of the animals I am hoping to see. Let me tell you the story about the baboon. You know, hey, when we were still very young, some of us, when we were growing, we had problems with wetting of the blankets, and some, they experienced the epilepsy. Sorry. So now, when having epilepsy and when wetting the blankets, we must go up the mountains very early in the morning at 4 o'clock to go and get to a place where the baboons are sleeping every night. And we must go there and pick up those droppings. Then we bring the droppings back home. And at home, we must come and burn a clay pot and put these droppings inside and have a blanket to cover ourselves and inhale it. But let me tell you, it is quite a very difficult experience. It's not easy because the droppings for the baboons, they don't smell nice. But because when one is experiencing problems and want to solve something, it was very easy for us. So the baboons droppings, they can help in order to solve problem of wetting blankets as well as epilepsy. That one, I can promise you, I have seen it happening, and I have been to the mountains because my elder brother experienced problems of wetting blankets every night. So, but the problem was solved. Since that day, he never experienced any problems. Anyway, let's get back to the tiny little interesting insects here. I do have some of the green things here, and I know this green color confused quite a lot of people. This is what is called a lichen. A lichen is like a mutualistic between fungi and algae. So these things, every time you see them, you must know that when these lichens die off, they become small particles and consist the soil. This grass which is growing here, this is the first grasses to grow here. What is happening here is that the lichens are dying, and when it's raining, some of the small particles of rocks are rolling and they are breaking down into small particles. And these small particles is the one which is bringing the soil. This is how the soil is formed. We call this area a primary succession because it's an area that was never disturbed before. It's an area which is now developing the new grass. This is a pioneer stage. It's the first grass to grow in this area where we are. So there is quite a very successful outcomes of the natural process trying to bring the soil for the vegetation to grow. So I am going to carry on further again down this stream and see if we can find other more interesting small things. Paula, unfortunately, the animals, they don't eat lichens at all. So lichens attached itself by the rocks and by the trees. Yes, a lichen is just a combination between fungi and algae. Algae is the green stuff, and you can even see them here where I am during the rainy season. And if they are fish, some of them, they do eat algae, but they don't eat it in the form of a lichen. If they find it alone, they can be able to feed on that. So now let's see. Tristan has got something by one of the big trees. Let's see what he's looking at now.
Well, I was hoping it would be a spotted cat because this squirrel was going absolutely crazy just now. It was alarm calling. But I think it was because we had a little steenbok that ran across through the thickets, and maybe this squirrel just caught a blur of something moving and thought it was a predator, and why it was starting to alarm call. But I don't know why we're having luck with squirrels this afternoon. I know it doesn't sound enthralling, but they're quite difficult things to get on camera, and so having them sit still for a bit is always quite nice, actually. It's sometimes good to appreciate these smaller animals that we get out here as well. It's quite satisfied now that it's not a leopard, though. Otherwise, if there was a leopard anywhere close here, it would still be shouting the odds and making quite a bit of noise. But it's decided that everything is okay and is now going to hide behind that branch. Hello, little one. Looks like a little girl. Now, you can tell a male and female squirrel apart quite quickly because I don't know how to put this delicately, but a male squirrel is quite well endowed when it comes to his genital region. They stick out massively when they have their tail up like that, and so generally you can actually see if it is a male, and this one looks very female-like, doesn't it, Ferg? Ferg is just nodding in agreement, yes. All right, well, I was hoping it was going to alarm call for longer and that we were going to find something, but it doesn't seem so. So we'll leave it in peace and let it carry on with its day, perched up in the knobthorn. I'm going to try and just do the Mulwati again. I know I've done it multiple times in the past few days, but I want to see if there's maybe some tracks for Hosanna again. Ronik, now you're asking a very interesting question, so I'm going to stop here and show you two different trees. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have the damage that I thought it would, but there's one on the right hand side here that's dead, right? And you're asking if a tree loses its bark, will it die? So that particular tree there is a very, very old one that has lost all of its bark. Now, it didn't get stripped like that just overnight. What would have happened with that tree is that the bark would have been stripped in a circular fashion around the tree. So the entire circumference of the tree would have been stripped by bark, and it's known as ring barking. And if a tree gets ring barked, then it dies, yes, because the nutrient transport system from the roots into the leaves and the way that the tree will grow and feed itself is cut completely. So it's basically like cutting out your stomach effectively. Oh, can you get this little bird for me right here? It's out in the open and we don't get to see them very often at all. It's a little chin spot batis that's out in the open. Now these guys are quite shy and quite reclusive, and so very difficult to get them. That was quite nice. But as I was saying, so you'll get a situation where that is cut, then the tree cannot feed itself and effectively will then die, and it just, it loses all its nutrients, and it will end up looking like this tree that we see here. If a tree, however, is eaten all the way around, and we have a situation where there is just a slight sliver, even a millimeter, that is left, then you'll find that the tree will actually survive and it will be able to still feed itself. It's pretty incredible. This is the same species of tree. It hasn't been fed on at all, luckily. Normally ellies try and target these knobthorns. So both these trees that you've seen, the live one and the dead one, are the same species. But this particular one has been lucky that elephants haven't gotten stuck into it just yet. But that's basically it. So as if there's any sliver of bark that can run through from north to south of a tree, basically, so up and down, then the tree will survive and it will be able to feed itself. Otherwise, unfortunately, it ends up looking like the one in the background. Good. Well, let's carry on. Let's see if we can get into this Mulwati system and if there's any sign of our little Chief Hosanna. I've driven there a few times and I haven't found anything, but I just want to double check it one more time because I am convinced that he is on a kill somewhere. There's just no tracks that suggest that he's been walking around on roads, and so we're going to try and find where he is. While I do that though, and while I head off into the riverbed, it sounds like Ralph has left his naughty baboons and is also jumping into a riverbed.
That we are, but we're just coming through a little bit of the section here, and then I'm going to pop out onto the other side and leave Tristan to check the rest of the Mulwati. Oh, we got another squirrel. Tristan was showing you squirrels just now, wasn't he? I won't stop for him. And yeah, well, I thought I'd better leave those baboons because I was getting sidetracked there. We're actually trying our best to keep up with the leopards, especially for the TV show, which I'm not a part of, so I do want to at least do my bit and try and find the characters, so that makes the life easy for the guys that are narrating during the show, because I could have just carried on with those baboons all afternoon. They are fascinating. Oh, there's a little duiker. Oh, and it sounds like Sydney has found something small to show you.
I have got a kill, and this is one of the kills that took place up in the air. So it is not a ground kill like for the big mammals. Right in here I've got a very small spider. I can see it moving. It's very difficult to identify the species. And here I have got this. This is. It looks to me like a stick insect. So look at the size of this spider in here and the size of the prey the spider caught. So you can see that the spider web, that silk, is very much powerful because they managed to get hold of such a very big prey. So what these spiders are doing, is that they come and they put these webs so that when the insects come, the insects don't see it because the color of the silk is much more colorless. When they come, they fly into the web and they get caught. And some of these spiders, they are so very much clever because they consider the wind direction, and some, they even consider the stream where they know the insects are going to come and drink, and they will put the web right in the middle of the stream when these insects are going up and down, get caught. So here, I can see that these spiders have not yet started eating. But I know spiders, they have got a tendency of coming and they eat, and as they're eating, some of them, they even absorb the body fluid from the prey and they vomit it and put it around the prey just to moisturize it, and then they will eat again. So you can see that this small insect, this small arachnid, managed to take down a very big insect. Rosalind, we do have dangerous spiders. It's just that the type of venom the spiders has got is not the same. And I know a lot of people, they've got a big confusion between a poison and a venom. They always confuse between the two. What has been used here by this spider, it was a venom. The difference between a venom and a poison is that a poison has got something to do with food intake, whereas a venom has to be injected. So here, it was a venom. There's 3 types of venoms we've got here. And these spiders, some of them have got what is called cytotoxic venom, which only affect the tissue skin if I'm bitten. Then we have got neurotoxic venom, which affect your neurons, your nervous coordination. There is even another type of venom which is called a hemotoxic venom. This one is carried by some of the dangerous snakes, as both snakes, scorpions, and spiders got this type of venoms. Hemotoxic venom has got something to do with the blood. So you can see now, I don't want to expose him. I can see he's coming out now to the prey. You can see he wants to defend the prey. I think it's the best time now for me to leave him so that he doesn't also get a lot of exposure, because he must also hide away from other predators. He is a predator which can also be predated. So I'm going to carry on and see if we can find more other tiny little animals. Michelle, I am not too sure if here in Juma they do have the fire ants, but today, soon as I'm done with these bush walks, I am going to ask the people who has been here much longer than I am. Tomorrow, I will be very much well informed, and I will tell you if we do have those kind of ants. So let's see some other updates. Yes, things are happening in the game reserve. Let's see what other colleagues of mine got on the other areas.
I'm just looking and more looking. It looks like quite a bit of elephant activity here. There's reasonably fresh dung a little bit further back. I don't know how old it is, maybe within a day or so, so we might get lucky and see an elephant or two shortly. Now I've come along this little Mamba loop, so this is heading towards the eastern section now of the Juma Traverse, and passing a nice big termite mound with a little Tambuti Grove. And so, as I say, for the minute, a little bit quiet since I've left those baboons with the impala and the kudu. But that's sometimes what you got to do to find leopards or lions. Just put yourself out there and keep driving around, see where they are, what they're doing. Because I think from this morning they did find them, but they did move a bit. Now raccoon, A leopard spot pattern, it can be a little bit genetic, obviously, because all leopards do have a general spot pattern, but it's very similar to our fingerprints. Everyone has an individual spot pattern, so yes, they all have spots, that's genetic, but the actual pattern itself is individualistic, so each one is different. For instance, there with Hosanna, his father, I mean, if you just look at his general spot pattern that we identify with, that one on his top line, whisker line, Hosanna's 3-3, whereas his father's got 5-5 on from one side to another. So yes, they both got a line of spots, but they're different and individual from one cat to the next. So it's yeah, it just breaks it down a little bit like that. And I'm sure that you could do some kind of XY crossing with leopards, but it wouldn't be probably as variable as like with us, where you've got brown hair, brown eyes, coupled with blue eyes, blonde hair. And if you had to do that crossing, you'll probably get a ratio of brown hair, brown eyes at 5-1 with blonde hair, blue eyes, and you'll probably have a mix in the middle. So yeah, well, speaking of leopards, I'm just going to continue on searching for them, and I think Tristan is doing the same.
I am indeed, Ralph. I'm busy trying to see what I can find. I'm just snooping about and just checking around if there's any sign of any of our leopards. I checked a bit of the west in case Hukumuri or Shadulu are around, but I got an update that Hukumuri is on Arathusa, so he's central Arathusa at the moment. And Shadulu, well, no sign of her, but keep kind of scratching around. And then I came to the Muwati to try and look for any sign of little Hosanna, but nothing for him. Lots of tracks for Tingana and Tandi and Kalamba from the past few days, so no sign of him at this stage. So, sorry Megs, if you can just repeat the name for me. So I got Sunny, but I didn't get the second part. Sorry, Megs. Did you get it, Ferg? Sunny Frank. There we go, Frank. So Sunny Frank, the lunar eclipse, it could affect leopard hunting. Well, it will affect leopard hunting, much like any full moon, in that it's going to be very difficult for our leopards to move about without being seen. So this morning we actually had a sighting of Tandi, and she was busy stalking around, and she actually, funnily enough, now, we've had everything to do with squirrels today, but I think I've also got squirrels mating now, so might as well just add to our squirrel day. Don't move, you two. Is there two there, Ferg? Oh, they've moved. They were busy in the act. I've ruined their date, Fergus. So there's the one. He's looking very upset with life. He was the one that was on top of the other one, not looking very impressed that I've ruined his mating. The other one is just down to the bottom right of that one, so they are both still there. If you just look down the branch a little bit, there's the other one. So there's the sheepish female. She's now trying to hide away. Well, sorry guys, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like I say, we've done everything squirrel this afternoon, so we might as well have had a look at squirrel mating. Unfortunately, I feel like we've embarrassed the two of them, and they've now decided that they're going to put some distance between one another. He doesn't look too perturbed, does he? He's going to clean himself up. Well done. Okay, let's not dwell on the squirrels. Let's leave them to do their thing. But in terms of the hunting, anytime there's a full moon, it's very difficult for the cats. And so I was saying this morning, Tandi was hunting and she wasn't even moving. And these impalas saw her. And I'm pretty sure it's because it's a little bit brighter with that moon out at the moment. And so with the eclipse taking place, maybe they'll get lucky and they'll be able to hunt a little bit easier than normal. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. It's obviously going to be an interesting one. I'm hoping that they'll take advantage of it and they'll be on a kill tomorrow morning. That would be quite nice. It would be the perfect way to kick off our next edition of TV shows. All right, Fergus, keep an eye out. We're looking for little Columba now because we've come into the area where we had her this morning. So we're just going to have a little look out. I'm thinking maybe Tundi has come back by now this afternoon to come and fetch the little one, or just come spend some time here. Maybe she was successful hunting and is now deciding maybe to get her and go back into the area. So that's the idea anyway. So while I check around here, let's send you back across to Sydney with smaller things.
I am still on a search. I am busy trying to find some of the very interesting small animals. But here where I am now, I can see it's very much quiet. So it's too dry. These insects are hiding and the grass is too long. Oh, Miss Zero, my favorite tree is the leadwood. The leadwood, why I like that tree the most is that it's one of the trees which has got a very long lasting period. So that tree can survive for up to 1,000 years, and when it's dead, the dead branch again can stand for quite a lot of years. So that is my favorite tree. And apart from that, it is also medicinal used, and it does attract some of the insects I used to eat while I was still very young. You know these insects called the green stink bug. That green stink bug, I used to eat those things a lot. And then we go to the mountains, we collect them. When bringing them home, we dry them. Some of them you will see here on their chest, it gets very dark. The dark ones, we select them because they're dark because of that stinky glands. It means the stinky gland is too much. Then we take the ones which are bright on the chest, and then we fry them and we eat. And those insects, because they've got 6 legs, the body and the legs is going to get separated. So we will first eat these big body parts, and at the end, I'm going to eat the legs, and they are very much nice. So now that question reminds me of the time I was still very young. So let me see, maybe we're going to see any other small interesting something here. Yeah, there is insects now, dry season, they are gone because mostly when walking in between the grasses, they normally fly and we can be able to see them. But now I can see it's not very easy. Let me take a question from the FC. Teresa, I prefer to do a bushwalk than driving because here on a bushwalk, I have got a close contact. Everything that I am showing you today here is things that I don't see from the vehicle. The vehicle is high up and it's very difficult to see the smaller, interesting animals. So I prefer to do walking than driving. This is giving me an opportunity to have a close contact with nature. So I'm enjoying nature. So you can see where I'm walking, nothing is flying, nothing is waking up. So it means insects are not really here. So now I think it's the best time for me to go to one of my friends, one of my colleagues, Ralph. Maybe he's got something there where he is now.
Well, yes, we do. We've actually spotted some zebra here. Let's just see if we can get a bit closer. I think it might be a few different kinds of animals. There's some impala here. There's also some zebra. Let's see if they'll be kind enough and let us get a nice view of them. Yeah, there we are. Hello, donkeys in pajamas. There they are. You can get a nice look on them right there. Oh, and there's a grey go-away bird telling us to go away, or maybe a leopard somewhere around. But look at these. No, don't get scared. Pretty zebras. They're just going into the thicket there. Might come out. They're not really thicket-type animals. They are bulk grazers, so they prefer the grasslands or where there's a lot more grass. Pretty animals. Yeah, nice with the light like that, hey? That's very cool. There, they're going to start grazing again. There we are. So much like the zebra have their individualistic stripe pattern, it's very almost the same with leopards and their spot pattern. And it's also one of the reasons why when a zebra gives birth, it will separate itself from the herd and then and stay away from the herd. And sometimes it can be even up to about 2 weeks, I've heard of. It's normally just a couple of days, and in that time the mother and the foal both imprint on their brains the smell of each other, the stripe pattern, their sort of characteristics, their traits, and you know, a real bonding session in that little isolated period when the foal is born. And so then after that they can identify each other rather easily once they rejoin the herd. Much like even, you know, often people would say to me with like the seals in the Cape Cross seal colony, I mean, it looks like chaos. And you've got these little seals that the mothers leave them to go off and feed, and then they'll come back to find their pups. And even if they've moved, they'll still be able to find their own pups. And it's obviously that imprinting period is quite an important time. And whether that's penguins that leave their chicks to go off and feed and then return, you know, it's all the way through the animal kingdom. That little imprinting period is very important. And I mean, you know, I sort of experienced it with my wife and my 2 little boys as well. When they were born, you know, she just wanted to be left alone for those first few days. Yes, a lot of family and friends around, but, you know, it was, you know, once we got back to our home, she just wanted nothing to do with anybody. And obviously, you know, down to a little bit of the trauma that, you know, she's gone through as a mother, a human mother, but I think it's also a lot down to that natural instinct to imprint baby and mother on each other so that they can get the smells and the sounds and everything, you know, and that little relationship going. So I think it's very important for, you know, most mammals, if not all of them, that little isolated period, whether it's directly after birth or just shortly after, important for the mother and the child or the offspring to spend that time. Very interesting, yes. I'm sure there's lots to talk about there, and there's maybe some more scientific reasons behind it, but that's my take on it anyway. And, well, something that you all know that I love doing is tracking.
I have got a track, and this track, it doesn't look very much fresh to me, but I can see this is from an ungulate. What is an ungulate? An ungulate is an animal which has got hoofs. So these are the hoofs, but I can see the direction of movement. It was going that way from this side. So let me just draw you an arrow for you to see. This track was coming from this side, going that way. So this is the right hoof, and this is the left hoof. In the middle, we have got a gap. This is from a buffalo. You know, I know the buffalo tracks, they confuse a lot of people when it comes to the earland, because they are all very much big. And of the earland, the gap between the hoofs, there is a very big gap. Of the buffalo, the gap is very thin. That is why if you listen to the earlands from a very long distance, as a group, when approaching, you will hear them clicking the hoofs. You will hear clicking sound. Click, click, click. A lot. You will hear a combination of the whole group just clicking from a long distance. Those ones are the earlands. This one is from the buffalo. It's quite a very big one. You can see even the size there. When I'm putting all my 4 fingers together, it's even a little bit much bigger than that. So it was the buffalo. So let's see, maybe we're going to find some of the other interesting tracks and try to track down 1 or 2 animals. Chaplain, at this stage, the lions, they are still by our adjacent prohibited properties. Yes, they are around Juma, but not yet with us. So that is why it's very much difficult to find them. But they are just coming and going. They will hopefully come back anytime soon. Yes, in Juma, we do have the lion as part of the Big Five, as we are a Big Five game reserve. So all I'm seeing here is the evidence from the buffaloes. You can just see here as well that here, this was the buffalo. But if you look at this dropping, you can even see the direction of movement from the animal. So let's see, this dropping land like this. So, but the biggest portion of the dropping is here on this side. So where it's going oval, it means the last part of the dropping to come out, it was this. And this is showing you that this animal was coming from this side going towards that side. The pointing of the dropping will show you where the animal is heading to and where the animal is coming from. These buffaloes, they were coming from this side going towards that side. So let's go to another search. Ralph is also searching some other lot of interesting things for you this afternoon.
Yep, anything and everything. That's what we're looking for, with the end goal of trying to find a leopard. So I'm coming in the area where I have found Tandi and Tlalamba quite regularly, and also I've found that the elephants like moving along this drainage line here as well. So, and ultimately I might land up at Buffels Hook Dam. So we'll go and check out if Scuba Steve is back or not. Maybe one of the leopards will come for a drink if we're lucky. Now, Paula, yes, I definitely do think that Tingana could hurt Tlalamba. Always need to be careful around, especially territorial males with cubs. You say Hosanna, not sorry. It's all.
I am still here in this area trying to see if we can find something. But now I want to ask you a question. So tell me, I can see this is quite a very beautiful tree. This is the russet bush willow. So which is the back side of a tree? Who can tell me? Which is the back side of a tree? Because I believe these trees, I hear people every time saying, no, I'm going to the back of that tree. So every time when I'm with the people in the bush, they always go to the back side. But to me, it's difficult to tell. Maybe you can assist me. Which is the back side of a tree? So I will be waiting to hear from my viewers if there is any try. But while I'm waiting, I'll be checking for more other things here. Yeah, while I'm waiting for these answers, I will be looking for the other interesting things around here. But here I can see that the buffaloes, they spend much of their time because they eat quite a lot of grass. If you can check these areas where I am, here they were feeding too much. All the grasses, you can see they've been cutted everywhere. So it's much more open compared to where we were So this is showing that the buffaloes, they were feeding a lot here in this area before they got disappeared, which is good for the grasses. When looking at the grasses at this stage, to us it's like, no, these buffaloes, they are not doing right because they are just eating everything and just opening the areas. Yes, I agree with you. When the grasses on top is completely taken out, it does expose the topsoil, and things such as erosion, they do take place when it's raining. So the vegetation does help to prevent runoff and to prevent soil erosion. So now, these buffaloes, if you can check here, you will see they ate to a certain point, and also here to a certain point, and also there. These grasses are too clever. They hide away the growth points. It's not like the trees. Trees, they grow from the top. They grow from the top. These ones, right at the bottom, you can see there's even a green more stuff here. So this green is showing you that these grasses, they are still active, and they are just hiding their nutrients and everything under the ground. So now it's very much dry. They will come back again anytime soon, shortly after the first rains. So I'm just going to take another question or a comment from the control. Noel is saying the back side of the tree is determined by the direction of the sun. And then let me say, Noel, the direction of the sun it cannot determine the side of the tree. What determines the back side of a tree is your approach direction. If you're coming from this side, the back side is that side. When coming from that side, the back side is this side. So I am going to see if we can find more other interesting stuff. So in other words, the tree, it doesn't have a backside. Those are some of the things that we normally create because of the approach direction. So let's go to Ralph and see what Ralph is doing on the other side.
Yes, on this side of things, we are still just searching for leopard, and this is such excellent sort of area for leopard. It's perfect. There's lots of bushbuck, nyala and kudu that move through these here next to this drainage line, and I'm making my way up towards Buffels Hook now, so not too far from the Buffels Hook waterhole. As I said, we'll just check up and see. Maybe we'll get lucky and there's some elephants or a leopard comes to drink. Now, Bobby, we don't get raccoons here, but what we do get are striped polecats, a little bit more like a skunk, I would say, but I'm just thinking of the little things that do look similar to a raccoon, and obviously a honey badger. I think a raccoon is sort of badgerish, isn't it? It might be slightly different, but so honey badgers, striped polecats. What else would be quite similar to a raccoon? Maybe, I mean, a jackal is not really, but it's not too far off. But yeah, so no, there's no raccoons here. Absolutely not. But yeah, so do you guys get skunks where you are? We don't get skunks here, but the striped polecat and honey badger are capable of spraying as well, and very pungent smell to that spray as well. But obviously not quite as bad as a skunk with that spray. I've seen that a couple of videos of guys getting sprayed by skunks, normally when they're messing around with them or trying to pick them up and that kind of stuff, and then they probably deserve it. But yeah, I've never picked a honey badger up, so I've never been sprayed by one, and I never will pick a honey badger up. I will never touch one because I'm sure it will probably bite my hand off or spray me or scratch the living daylights out of me. So no, as small as they are tenacious, and they've got all the armory and defenses that you could think of. So very sharp teeth, They've got very sharp claws. They've got a spray. It's almost endless. Now, MK, yes, honey badgers do eat honey. It's not the only thing that they eat. They eat all sorts. So pretty similar to baboons. They'll eat all sorts of things. They do like digging out dung balls that the dung beetles have made, especially now in the winter times when the larvae and the grubs are inside that dung. But there's a very special relationship with the honey badger and the honey guide, and it's the greater honey guide that forms this relationship with the honey badger. And what he does is he irritates the honey badger to the point that the honey badger wants to kill him. And then flies just in front of his nose that he can't get him and leads him towards where there is some African honeybees nesting, and that's where they'll go into. Once the honey badger then realizes that there's a hive there, he'll start to break that open, and not quite like the myth suggests that the honey badger then goes, "Thank you, Mr. Honey Guide," and leaves him a piece of honey. It doesn't work like that. He's just a very messy eater. So he breaks open, and there's only one spot right on the tip of his nose that the bees can actually sting him. And other than that, he's pretty defended, well, with the thick skin that he's got and lots of fur. So he breaks it open. He starts to feed on all on the honey and the comb. And when he's finished, he walks off, and obviously leaving some scraps for the honey guide to feed on. So that's the relationship there. Now, it's known with the Khoisan or the Bushman people because these honey guides, they'll also come to us when we're out on foot. And it's happened to me many times that we've actually followed the honey guide and we see a beehive there. But obviously, not having the tools to open it, we are obviously scared to get stung. But the story goes that with the Khoisan and the Bushman people, they would follow the honey guides and they would lead them to these beehives. But the myth goes that you would always have to leave the honey guide something, because if you didn't, the next time he was going to lead you into danger, which could be a black mamba or a pride of lions. So if the honey guide leads you to a beehive, always remember that you need to leave him some food, otherwise he's going to lead you to danger. Now, it looks like Buffelshoek waterhole is absolutely bare. There's not even Scuba Steve, but I hear that Tristan has at least found something.
Well, I have. Not that you would be able to see it very easily behind all of these trees and bushes, but there's a little herd of nyala that are hanging around in a little tambuti thicket. Of course, they were out in the open, but given how nyala are, they decided that they'd rather be hidden than exposed. So you can see a bit of movement every now and then, a few ears twitching, and it's mostly females that are in there. There's a couple young boys as well that are spread around. Now, these guys are in a drainage line where we thought maybe Tlalamba would go, and I went down in there and had a little walk around, and there are just tracks for her everywhere. She's been all over the place inside there. So I think she spent the day moving around in there. No sign of Thandi coming back just yet. It seems as though Thandi is still out hunting and hasn't quite come back to fetch her little one. So I'm sure she's inside here somewhere. The problem is that if we go into an area where, you know, where it is now, there's no way to get a car in there at all. So it's interesting to see. Anyway, let's carry on. Let's see what else we can find and see if there's anything else. Now, there's two very exciting prospects that could happen this afternoon. There's Tingana, who is obviously north of our boundary, that is just sleeping on a termite mound and could come south. But there's also a leopard that many of you will not know at all, called Mfokazi, that is not far from our boundary as well, and apparently is slowly heading south. So it's not far from where we are right now, actually. It's a little bit further to our west. So we're going to hang around in this section and see. Maybe we get lucky and Mfokazi will come southwards. Some of you may know him, some of you won't. He's a male that's seen every now and then on Buffelshoek. He's not the most relaxed, but also not the shyest, so he's kind of in between, and he's an older individual. He's been spotted in all kinds of random places and kind of moves in and out and goes away for months at a time and then all of a sudden appears again. It seems mostly around the winter months, so it will be interesting to see how he is with the vehicles. I'm hoping that he is going to come south onto our side. And yesterday, funnily enough, Conrad said he saw a leopard that was quite shy on Vuyatela access going north. Now, where this leopard is pretty much a straight line from where that would be, and so I wonder if it wasn't him that was around. The guys are not sure if it even is Mfakazi, but given that he was seen 2 days ago, I think it is him that is around. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tingana responds, because Tingana is probably, I would say, maybe 300 meters, 400 meters from where that male is. So it's going to be interesting to see if they both push southwards towards our area. But we'll have a little look around. I'm just trying to listen to the radio to see what's actually happening and see what the guys are up to and whether or not they've still with Mfakazi or if he's just given them the slip. Now it sounds like there's a female leopard in that area too. So skittish female, skittish male and Tingana all in the same spot just north of us, which is interesting. Let's have a look. Let's just go slowly along the boundary here. Maybe, just maybe, we're going to get lucky and one of them is going to pop out in front of us. So it will be still a little bit further west of where we are now, but it sounds like maybe that's why Tingana and Tundi were on such a mission this morning, moving in this direction. Maybe they picked up something that we don't know about and they've headed off in this area to try and solve the conundrum that's of any intruders coming into their area. It's crazy though. It just goes to show you there's lots happening on Buffelshoek. We just don't really know about it at all. Good, well, we're going to head off into that area. We're going to sit and be patient. While we do that, let's send you across to Sydney, who's still traipsing about in the middle of the bushes.
I am still looking and looking and looking, and these insects and these arachnids and these birds, they are hiding. So, but here I want to check something. So I've got some of the droppings here, and these droppings, they are from the elephant. So I know some of the people from Africa, they're using this in order to chase away mosquitoes, and some other also people from overseas, when they come to South Africa, they want to experience this. So I just want to give you a safety measure to say, when you are trying to chase away the mosquitoes, make use of the elephant droppings. You must be very careful, because let's look now. The elephant droppings is consisted of the grass, it's consisted of the leaves, it's consisted of the sticks. Let me just open this one and see. It's consisted of the sticks. And these things, if you put some fire on it, it is going to burn. Slowly at the beginning, you're going to enjoy the smoke. But when sleeping, possibilities of this to catch flames are very high because of the sticks and the leaves, which is not finally digested. So for the elephants, you must be careful. You must create a smoke and then you must kill it. But when it comes to this one, this is from a buffalo. So the buffalo as well and the domestic cows, we use these things to chase mosquitoes. If you can check the buffalo's droppings, if you look there, everything is finally digested. If you burn this, it's not going to burn into flames. It's just going to burn silently. You will just see all the ashes, smoke coming, and just ashes until it's finished. But the elephant one, you must have to be very much careful. They are both mosquito repellents, but I prefer this one because there is a lot of safety on it than the elephant one. Nina Mo, the buffaloes during the dry season, they like to feed on this kind of grass. This grass that I have got here, I think the species, it looks to me like a signal grass. Not too sure. It is quite very much difficult to identify the grass at this stage. However, the favorite grass for the buffaloes is the thatch grass, because the thatch grass, when it's recovering during the summer season, is very much sweet, and when it comes to the dry season, it's going to lose that, and then they will be just feeding on them the way they are. But now here in Juma, I have seen this grass is the grass that has been cutted by those buffaloes earlier on. You can see these buffaloes spend much time also. So we are just walking. Let's see Ralph, who is just driving, and see what he's up to.
Well, just coming past where the Nkuhumas killed that buffalo, just down in this drainage here off where we're driving at the moment. This is now Hyena Road, as I've just looped back in from the Buffalo's Hook corner. So we're sort of heading back towards the central area, but just on the eastern side of the Djuma Traverse. So that buffalo was killed down here. And remember, I don't know if you guys were watching or if there are any new viewers, just to tell you, in this area we had the Nkuhuma Pride of Lions. They killed a buffalo, and this was in the night, but one of the Avoca males, one of the coalition males, obviously heard the commotion of this buffalo being killed, and they came in and they just scattered the female lions, and it was actually a few days after that that there were two young females that were actually then walking around on their own. So they'd been separated from the pride, and they were walking around on their own for a couple of days. We actually tracked them on foot initially, and then I found them with the vehicle again and followed them, and it was quite anxious period because we didn't know if they were going to get back to the rest of the pride or not. Anyway, eventually it all worked out, and those two youngsters just literally walked on the path that the Nkuhuma pride had been moving along for the days previous to that, and eventually they linked up. So it was would have been nice to see them actually come together again after those few days being apart, because lions are very touchy-feely and they rub up against each other, and even if they've been away from each other for a couple of hours. So after a few days, I can imagine that the greeting ceremonies there must have been quite elaborate, and I think those two youngsters probably had their first few nights out alone in the bush, and so I think they probably were quite scared and very relieved to join up with the pride once again. So that would have been awesome to see. Much as watching Tandi, Tlalamba and Hosanna walking together, and from the tracks before the gremlins attacked us, when I was trying to tell you that, the tracks didn't just suggest, they showed us that Hosanna and Tlalamba were playing, and both Herbie and myself, we can both hold our own tracking, and we both agreed that they were definitely playing with each other. And Senzo, the cameraman, he agreed as well, so he's evidence. So between the three of us, we all concurred that there was definite playfulness going on with Tlalamba and Hosanna. And you could see the way that one of them was hiding, sort of waiting up behind a little branch as the other one walked past, and jumping and playing and probably rolling as well, because we did see some scuff marks on the ground where one was possibly rolled by the other. And a definitely playful nature that. I've seen it with lions as well. In fact, after I got charged by three male lions, we then followed their tracks afterwards, and we realized that they had actually been charging us as a bit of their start to the game that they were playing for the rest of the evening, because after they charged us for 20 minutes, and it was very quite scary, after that the tracks showed that they were doing exactly that, ambushing each other and playing, and so yeah, but you can tell a lot from the tracks, and it was clear as daylight that those guys were playing. So it would have been wonderful to watch. That's not the only wonderful thing to watch. We're heading into that period now of the golden light, and I just love it at this time.
Well, I tend to agree with you, Ralph. It is a beautiful time of the day to be out. It's now, as that sun starts to get low, particularly in the winter months when you've got all this dust in the air, the light gets soft and filtered. Now, you're looking straight north at the moment, well, northwest, should I say, into Buffalo's Hook, and if you look very, very carefully, if Fergus punches in quite far, you will see that there are a few cars. Now, that is where Tingana is currently sitting. Can we even see him? Maybe we can see him on a mound. Can we see him? I don't know which way everybody's looking, but apparently Tingana is sitting there somewhere. So that's where he is at the moment. I think maybe let's go to the right a little bit. Fergus, is there a tree or a mound there? I don't see anything. I'm battling to find him on top there, but maybe he's on top of that mound. Anyway, that's roughly where Tingana is. Now, to the right of that is where this Mfokazi or other male leopard was seen, moving in this direction, and then to the right of that would then be where that female leopard was spotted, also moving in this sort of southeasterly direction. Very skittish, apparently. Rexon tells me that she was not even looking at him, is just head down and running through the bushes. So not sure who she is. I would imagine it's the female that had the 2 cubs last year, and so I think that would be who it is, but I'm not sure which female that is. Nobody actually knows, I don't think. So what we're doing now is we're just sitting very patiently and waiting in the hope that maybe, just maybe, Tingana or one of these leopards decides to grace us with their presence and head south. It's a worthwhile wait. It's not exactly far from the boundary, and if there's a leopard moving slowly southwards, well, you never know. Maybe we're going to get lucky and we're actually going to see anything. We'll see something, should I say, and we'll get one of these leopards coming down. I would be quite happy to find him for Kazi, because I don't think we've ever had him on a live drive. Right, now while we sit and be patient, let's send you back across to Sydney, who's got a golden something, but I didn't quite hear what.
I have got a very big hole. I am trying to check here who dug this hole. The hole is quite very much big. There's nothing in here I'm seeing now, but this hole has been dug by the artifact. So I'm convinced enough, because there's even other evidences here nearby. But looking at the size of the hole, you can see the artifacts, they can dig very deep holes. Artifact can be able to dig a hole of 6 meters down in less than 15 minutes time. So they are faster than a team of men. Look, now the spiders are using this area in order to catch the insects. So the spiders are very much opportunistic. So now, this artifact, I've got something here. I've got some droppings here. So these droppings, I'm not too sure which animal left these droppings here. There's no other sign I'm seeing. So these droppings, are they from the artifact or is from another animal? So artifact, what do they eat? The artifacts, they eat ants and they eat termites. Let's open here just to check what is inside. This one, it doesn't eat ants and it doesn't eat the termites, because there is no chitin. Chitin is just the skin for these insects. The skin which is covering the outer layer of the ants and also of the termites. So these things, you can see this one, it was not an artifact. So it means it was one of the grazers or one of the browsers here. So the artifact, he did not leave behind any evidence. Oh, I can see David just fell into the artifact hole. Are you okay? Okay. So you can see the artifact here. It seems like the artifact dug quite a lot of false holes. Maybe he was staying here because he's digging, looking for the diet, and some of the areas they are digging in order to stay in. And where they are staying, chances of creating false holes just to mislead the predators can be very much high. So I'm glad that David is not injured. Paula, the chances of seeing the artifacts during the dry season, during the daytime, they are very much high. Only during the summer season you will see them at night. They are very much nocturnal. During the day, in the area where they don't get disturbed, and if there is a little bit of insects such as ants and termites available, they've got to come out early for foraging purposes. And they can travel very long distances. So I just woke up someone, it was a francolin. So they can be able to go for about 12, 16 kilometers every night according to the availability of food. So let's go to Ralph and see what Ralph is doing on the other side. He's driving somewhere.
Yes, I am, and I'm just checking some tracks here because we're coming down again towards the Mlawati. We've got some Nyala tracks. There were some baboon tracks a little bit further back. I think there's also hyena tracks. Yes, there is hyena tracks. There's squirrel tracks. There's mongoose tracks. Lots of tracks, but not the one we want. And that is a leopard track. Here is a spurfowl track. Baboon tracks again. So there's lots of tracks around. We saw those baboons. I think they may have crossed here and then gone on to the other side. And as I say, they were also then in the staff quarters just after around breakfast time, I would say. It was probably while we were all having breakfast that the area or the coast was clear for the baboons to go in there. But now I'm going to drop back down into the Mlawati. I'm going to work the area where we last saw Hosana. I'm sure he's somewhere around here, still hiding. He was seen last on the dam cam, so he obviously had continued up there, but I think that he's probably still hanging around in this area here. So let's go and have a look. Let's just work this nice and slowly. He could be hiding well, not hiding, but just lying up here somewhere. Maybe we'll get lucky and maybe he rolls over just as we're driving past and gives us a chance to spot him. Back into the nice thick sand. And it's crazy, even when you're driving 4x4 in this kind of sand, I often used to get it in the desert where in the early morning you can drive without using diff lock and low range, but as the sand heats up, as the day gets later in the day, it becomes a lot more difficult to drive in the sand because it becomes softer and softer as it heats up. So a lot more chance to then get stuck. And then obviously what you do is you just deflate your tires to just under 1 bar. And that it really maximizes the surface area of your tires. And then you just cruise on top. It's a little bit like driving a boat where if you get on the plane, which is basically lifting the boat out of the water and you sort of skimming on top of it. It's the same idea when you're driving in sand. If it's very hot and you're actually sinking into it, you're literally plowing like a boat would in the water. If you don't have enough power and you've got too much weight in the boat, you're going to be plowing. But as soon as you put more power with the boat, or you take out weight in the boat, and then you get on top of that sand and you get onto that plane, obviously you use less fuel, and it's the most efficient way. And so the same with the vehicle driving in sand. Double that, or at least maximize the surface area of your tires and get cruising on top of the sand as opposed to plowing through it. That's the whole idea. A little bit of 4x4 skills there, driving in sand. So this was the area that we lost Hosana. And when I had to do that 1,000,000-point turn, when Hosana actually went hunting behind us, this is where we lost him. So we're going to continue on the search here, but off you go to Tristan and see if he can see Tingana.
Well, we couldn't see Tingana earlier, but we can now because he's taken camouflage inside of the car. Well, that's what it looks like, doesn't it? There you go. You can see he's turning to face us. So exactly where that vehicle is, in the middle row of seats, is his head that is on top of a termite mound. But it almost looks like he's just joined them for a safari, and he's busy looking around at the moment. It's not an ideal view. It is seriously far. It's on the really a long way away, but at least that's where our boy is sitting, and we managed to just snipe a little view at this stage. I'm sitting here just in the hope that the other male comes in our direction and moves this way and we get to bump into him. That's the only reason we're sitting here for now. Tingana looks as though he's very alert facing eastwards, which is where that male was last seen, and so It could also be that that male has turned and gone back north. He could have gone further east. It's very difficult to say. No one is following him, and so it's just a off chance that he does come. But the Duke is looking, well, ever so stately, sitting on his mound at the moment. Now, it's interesting to me is that he hasn't spent much time in Buffelshoek of late. Obviously, we know he's been in bad condition, and he had a situation where he wasn't really doing very well and didn't patrol his territory at all. But as he's sort of bounced back, and as he's been getting more and more confident and more roaring and more carrying on, he's pushing further and further into his old haunts again. We're starting to see his tracks around Treehouse Dam. We're starting to see him moving up into Buffelshoek again, and it's becoming more and more the normal sort of Tingana route that he likes to walk. And he's been a very angry boy of late. Well, I don't know if angry is the right word, but he's been serious about making sure that everybody knows that he is back in town, because he has vocalized excessively over the course of the last few weeks, and he's really made it very clear. There he goes, he's going off the mound, and so it looks like he's going to head north. I'm hoping he might turn from those vehicles, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like he's going to go in a northeasterly direction. There we go, down he goes. But let's stick around. You never know. He might head in this direction. So he's now gone more kind of towards the east and is potentially trailing that other male. So it's worthwhile to stick around, because if they do trail each other, you might find a situation where the one male runs south and Tingana follows him, and we get the two of them kind of having a bit of a little fight with one another. So we're going to hopefully get that play out for us, and while we do that, let's send you back across to Sydney, who's still got his microscope out and looking at all the smaller things in the bush.
I'm trying to check here if I can find something, so I can just see this tree. It does have some of the galls. It looks like the tree is constipated. You can see there, and you can also see there, and this one I'm pointing has got some of the little holes. You see those holes there? So these holes are telling you that something is happening here. Who created these galls? It's not the tree itself. These galls has been created by an insect. It's called a gall match. These insects, they come and bite the branch, and the tree react by releasing lot of growth hormones, and those growth hormones then develop the gall. I'm just going to try and find if yeah, here I've got one very much closer. So if you can look there, there is some very small tiny breathing holes. These insects bite here, and when this gall is out like this, then they lay their eggs inside there, and then the eggs, the larva then is going to breathe and come out. So it's an insect which did this. It's just that I don't want to open here for you to see, because these insects, this is where it's hiding, and I don't want to expose them for any other predators. So the name of the tree is called the Tamboti tree. They target too much the Tamboti trees. And these insects are very much safe here, because Tamboti trees are the poisonous trees. It's one of those trees you cannot use the wood for drying purposes. And not all animals are interested, browsers, to come and eat here. So these insects, they are very much safe here. Scenic, unfortunately, I have never collected the galls from the trees, but also if it happened long time ago, it was before I knew what was happening in there. But I have collected quite a lot of things from this kind of trees, because some of the trees, some of the insects, they make honey. Not only the bees make honey, there is some other insects that I know, they fly and they stay in some of these trees, and we used to crack them just to get hold of the honey in there. Paula, the benefit of a wasp when it's stinging there is that the tree is going to create a house. And when the house is created, eggs are going to be laid in there. So that is another way of creating a nest. They don't want to spend all their energy in building. They just want to provoke the trees to build a house for them. there's quite a lot of same species, a lot of tamboti trees. So if you look at this bark, I am very much interested on these tamboti tree barks. Look at the trunk. You can see this trunk. It looks like a skin of one of the animals. If you look at this, it looks like a crocodile skin. Look at this. This looks like a crocodile skin. Beautiful, isn't it? So these trees, they are poisonous. But you're not going to believe that a poisonous tree can be killed by one of the small animals, such as a porcupine. Porcupine, they debug these trees here, not very far away from the bottom, and they cut the communication. And once the communication between the top and the bottom part of the tree is taken out, the tree goes through a lot of stress, and they get stressed and they die. So let's see, Ralph is driving around, he's searching for the leopards and see how he's doing.
Yes, I have just come back to where we last saw Hosanna, that young male leopard, and I'm just looking around to see if maybe he's returned into this part of the Mlawati. There's lots of tamboti thickets here on either side of the on the banks on either side. So just checking. It's about that time of the evening as well when they could be quite mobile. It's cooling off. You'll see how the sun is heading now right down towards the horizon. Now, Mike, perhaps a little later evening, I think it's
Well, unfortunately, it sounds like Ralph's got a few gremlins in that area, but I'm not sure Hosanna will still be around that section. We know that he was at the dam at around sort of 10 o'clock, so maybe Ralph needs to just check a little bit further to the north and see what he can get. But we've unfortunately lost view of Tingana. He's gone down and he's now lying on a dam wall just to our north called Rhino Rubbing Post Row or Dam or something like that. And so there's no sign of him. So what I'm doing is, as you can see, we're driving very, 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 very slowly at the moment. And the reason why I'm driving so slowly is because I have a situation where we're just trying to bump this other leopard that was coming this direction. So we're just trying to scan as we go. I was thinking that maybe Tingana spotted that male, and maybe the male will then jog southwards and try and head in this direction just to put some distance between him and Tingana. But so far, no sign, no luck of him. We can't see anything. There's no alarm calls to indicate that he is in this direction, but hopefully he will pop out. It's obviously one of those waiting games. It can be a bit frustrating that no one's even... there we go. So, talking about dam cams, it sounds as though Hosanna has just popped out at the dam cam. So he must have a kill somewhere there, which is fantastic news. So I'm glad Ralph will be close enough to go and see. We had a feeling that he was in that area, so I'm glad that he has popped out. I'm sure Ralph will get there fairly shortly, which is wonderful news. It's a lot of leopards in a very, very small space at the moment, because if you think where Tingana, Tandi, Klalamba, where Mfukazi, this other female, if you had to draw a circle around that, it is very, very small. It is not a big area at all. So there's a lot of leopards hanging around in the same area, and it's because of the Mulwati and water. There's no other water anywhere else, and that's why the leopards are all being drawn to that section. But no luck yet, I'm afraid, for these other leopards. I wonder where Hosanna has been and what he's been eating, because now that he's arrived at the dam, I'm 99% sure he's been on a kill yesterday and during the course of the night before. I'm pretty sure that's what he's been doing and eating. And while we contemplate what he's been up to, let's send you across to Ralph, who I think has arrived at Hosanna, and he can tell us whether or not he's got a full belly.
Yes, so we went too far away from him. Hey, I think we were driving just behind him as he was making his way up here. I'm sure he's just walked up like that. So he's having a little bit of a snooze, but look how his tail is just wiggling and waggling there. He is awake. He's not fully asleep, but we can just sit now and watch Mr. Hosana. Thanks for showing yourself, buddy. And that was obviously spotted on the dam cam, so well done in FC, and I'm sure the guys operating the dam cam, well done, well spotted. I wonder, I'm sure he's just come up from the side. Can't see any tracks on the road, so I wonder if he's just popped up on top. But perfect. That's what we were looking for. A beautiful cat, isn't he? So looking now towards so Tristan was asking if his belly is full. It doesn't look like it from here, but I often find it a little bit difficult to tell when they're lying down, because you can often think that it's quite full when they're lying down, and then they stand up and they look quite empty. But for now I would say not. He doesn't look full. But we'll be able to confirm that when he stands up. It's definitely not rotund. If he has eaten, he hasn't eaten a serious amount. Maybe eaten the scrubber here or two. See that tail, hey? It's almost got a mind of its own. Now, Laura Moore, you say what a pose. It is a fantastic pose, isn't it? And look there, he's almost clawing the ground. He is a very pretty cat. Now there's 3 little squirrels in the road straight ahead of him, and they probably give him away in a second. Look at this, the one standing up now. There he goes. Is that a little baby? Oh, I think maybe he spotted him there. Oh, another one in the road, also standing up. I think when they realize that it's a leopard watching them, they're going to choo. There he goes. A little bit of a breeze coming through, and that sun nearly setting. So, Mr. Hosana, what you been doing for the last few days? We haven't seen you for a while. Now, Ains, leopards are always alone, because generally that's actually what cats do, from caracal to African wildcats, to cheetah to a large degree. They do form small coalitions, but generally that's sort of the evolved tactics and social behavior of cats. It's unusual for cats to walk around in groups. So I think that evolution-wise they've evolved to be solitary. And I think later on, the lions and cheetah have evolved sort of reverse into forming groups and coalitions, etc. So what leopards do is perfectly natural. And moving around on your own, with them being ambush hunters, makes a lot of sense, because if there's more of them around, it could result in them giving away their position. So hunting alone, using ambush, using stealth, just silent hunters they are, and very successful at that. The leopards are the most successful and adaptable cats around the world, and the biggest populations of them actually occur in pretty much in one of the largest cities on the planet, in Mumbai. And it's been well documented that there they live and feed on pigs. And they actually, with the thermal sort of cameras, they've been able to pick up how these leopards literally live in amongst humans without them even knowing it. And I've witnessed that myself with when I was studying in Pretoria in South Africa. We actually got called out to come and help dart a leopard that was living in a block of flats, and an old lady came out at 3 in the morning to let her dog out, and there was a leopard on the 4th floor staring at her in the face when she opened the door. So it was living in one of the little alleys where the dustbins were, and it was eating dogs and cats. So we went and helped dart it and take it out to one of the nature reserves. But yeah, you'll be surprised where leopards are found. think there's nothing around, but the tracks show that they're there. And in the farming areas and near to civilization, they don't make any noise, much like the jackals and hyenas. So I think, well, that's pretty much us for the rest of the drive. We're going to be hanging here with Hosana. He's eyeing up those impala, and the sun now starting to set.
I am really enjoying the sunset at the moment, with a little bit of cloud stripe there. This is lovely. So when the sun is going down like this, the insects I was looking for is going to be very difficult a little bit now for me to find them. Yes, some of these insects, they do come out during the night. Anna Marie, I'm not too sure if this area is having the rain spiders, but I will investigate and check. Coming back tomorrow, I will be very much well informed knowing if the rain spiders are occurring here in Djuma. So I haven't seen a lot of spiders at this stage. I've just seen very few species. But I know come rainy season, there will be just spider webs everywhere. So that is when I will see them. Ninamu, the spiders, it only takes them an hour. A very big web, they can do it in just an hour. So you will see, this is how they do it. They will come, look here, I have got this branch. They will come and attach something here. And that silk is so very lightweight. And they will wait until the wind push them to this side, and they will come and they will put now the foundation, and they will come back again and have a foundation in the middle. They will come and then design that very nice spider web, and they will have to now put it there every time. And not all the spiders are pitching their spider webs permanently. Some of them, they come and pitch, and by the right time, like now, during the sunset, they are eating everything again. But you will see, they will only see the foundation. They will only leave behind the foundation. They will eat again everything. Because if they don't eat everything again, their digestive system get affected. So they must have to pitch, and they must have to come again and take, so that they can help with their digestive system. Some of them, they put permanent traps. But they know their responsibility is to repair them. These permanent the webs that are put there has to be repaired all the time. And they are so very much fragile, but they work. So let me see if we're going to find some of these things. So now let's go to Tristan. He's also searching for a leopard on the other side. I'm not searching for a leopard. Maybe he's got something for you.
Well, not at the moment, Sydney, but what we do have is just a total amount of chaos of tracks everywhere at the moment. There's going in all directions. There's male, females, walking up and down all over the fire break, and then there's tracks with what looks like the skittish female crossing into Djuma behind us. So while we were watching Tingana, it looks like she crossed over. I'm going to try and see if we can find her. I know that she is very shy, and so she's not on the fire break section on our right hand side, because we would have spotted her quite easily. So I think she's gone into a thicket, which is going to make it quite difficult. But there's just tracks all over the place. So I wonder what was going on here last night, that we had a situation where obviously Tandi was here and we have Tingana around, so maybe one of them killed something and they've all come in to investigate what's going on. The reason why I'm just kind of driving around in loops is because I'm hoping that this male and Tingana, both of them, are following the scent of the female, and that they're going to come out on the female's tracks effectively. That's what I'm hoping for. Whether or not that's going to happen, well, that's going to be difficult to see, but we'll try and hope for that scenario to play out. But this is roughly where I had the tracks for the female coming out from Buffelshoek, and they weren't here when we drove this road earlier, because I stopped and checked this junction quite thoroughly. So it should be just in front here where we've got these tracks, and it looks like she was moving quite quickly. Just from the tracks, it's quite soft sand. She's dug her feet in quite quickly into the sand as she's crossed over. So it will be right over here. So there they are. Very, very fresh tracks on the road itself. They've come over and they're going southwards into Juma, not quite on that pathway. They're a little bit more to the right. You'll see them very clearly. Those are the tracks there. Sorry, Ferg, I know I've parked quite close, but there they are for her. And they, like I say, are very fresh. They're on top of most of the vehicles. And so she obviously crossed in here when we came past and is unfortunately very, very shy, which means that we're not really getting any luck finding her. The thing is, though, is there's no sign of the male coming over yet. So I'm wondering if he's still lagging behind at the moment and will come just now. But her tracks head onto the fire break, and then there's up and down of female and male all over the place there. So we'll try and figure it out. Hopefully as darkness descends, she'll be more comfortable and we'll be able to get her with the spotlight. That's the idea. But while we do that, let's send you back across to Ralph, who's got no such dilemma because, well, he's got the most relaxed leopard in the world.
That we do, and I've just missioned around so that we can get a nice front view of Hosana, because we don't want to be looking at the back of his head. So there we go. I didn't want to disturb him either by trying to slide past him. That would just be rude. So I know that he's a relaxed leopard. Now looking from this angle, it looks like he might have a full belly, but as I say, I want to see when he stands up and then I'll confirm it or not, because I've made that mistake before. It does look like he's got a rather full belly, but let's wait and see. Very relaxed. I wonder if he's coming for a drink or if he's just coming for being back in his little restaurant or his holiday home here next to Vuyatela Dam, with food on tap and water when you want, nice trees to hang out in, and just a perfect spot for him. He is absolutely stunning, isn't he? So it seems like everybody agreeing. He is a very pretty cat. Still quite a youngster. Alright, so from a very pretty Hosana male leopard, let's head you on over to Tristan with something different.
Well, it is something different, and it's the talk of the town at the moment. The very big full moon that is coming out. It is a blood moon this evening, and there is a lunar eclipse as well, which is very, very exciting. So we've got a situation where we've got the moon coming up, and there will be an eclipse from tonight. And I think it starts at about 7:15. Is that right, Fergus? Somewhere around 7:15 in our time here in South Africa. So this evening,